beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, raw, raw.
What is up, lovely people of the internet? Today we're making bagels. My family and I have been eating a lot of bagels lately, and I came to the conclusion that I'd like to try to make bagels to see if I can make them cheaper and see if they turn out just as good or better than what you can buy them for. Now it's gonna be a pretty hard task because you can get bagels pretty cheap. But anyways, I'm gonna post the recipe down below. And I'm just mixing up the wet and dry ingredients right now that we're gonna start forming our dough with. And then afterwards, we're gonna have to add the remaining flour to this wet dough starter part of the recipe right now. But anyways, I'll walk into the video right now. Yeah, so this is just our yeast, sugar, flour, salt mixture. And here I am adding the remaining, I think, 2 or 3 cups of flour to the dough. Now, if you have a mixer with the paddle attachment or the hook attachment, it's going to make this so much easier. Like, you totally will feel the pump in your forearms and in your wrists doing this by hand, for sure. And I think that if you use the dough hook, that you're going to end up getting a lot smoother of a dough. You'll see towards the end here when I'm shaping the bagels that the dough's got like some pop marks in it, some like divots or stretch marks. So it's not like a super smooth dough doing it by hand, but definitely works out. Like, I'm not going to go and buy a $300 KitchenAid mixer to try to save money on bagels. But we'll see. But anyways, this is the first knead down. You mix everything together, knead it for like 8 to 10 minutes. Then I'm going to go ahead and just cover this and put it in a warm place. Wrap it. I didn't use any oil. Sometimes you'd like oil your dough so it doesn't stick to the bowl or stick, if it rises too much, stick to the top. But like, there's a lot of gluten developed in this dough, so I'm not worried about it getting too sticky, I guess. My kitchen was pretty cold that day, so I set my oven on just really low at 175 just to add a little bit more heat and to throw a towel on it, because it just, depending on the type of year, like if you're doing this summer and your house is really warm, I'm sure that you could probably proof this dough in half an hour to 45 minutes, but that day it took an hour and a half. But here we are. We've essentially doubled in size, and that's what we wanted. So we're gonna split this recipe up into 8 bagels. And I was noticing when I was cutting through the dough, like, it's stiff. Like, this dough pushed back. Like, I'm having to push pretty hard. You can like see the white on my knuckles of how hard I'm having to push this dough. So I was pretty stoked at this point in the recipe because bagels are dense and bagels are chewy. So at this point, you'd want the dough to sort of have those characteristics as well, and it does. So we're definitely off to a good start. Yeah, so I'm just portioning 8 bagels. Nothing has to be perfect here. These are artisan bagels. Yeah, so it's looking good. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. Yeah, so this process too, I went over a couple different recipes, and there was like rolling it into a 9 or 10-inch long tube and then wrapping it around. So I wasn't sure how I was supposed to wrap it around my hand and pinch it. Like, that just wasn't gonna happen. I was also curious about this method because, like, where I'm joining the ends right there, I thought there's gonna be this huge joint. I'm like, so there's no egg wash. I'm not using any water. Like, how am I crimping this bagel together? But like, it turns out that this version, like rolling it out into a tube and pinching it together, was actually the preferred method. And then like, you can hardly tell how you did it. Because also, another method was to just roll the dough into a little tiny ball like this, and then poke your finger in the center, and then work the bagel kind of like a pizza dough, stretch it out. It worked as well. It didn't end up like having as nice of a finish, I guess you'd say. It's like definitely a little bit lumpier. You could see where you were like sort of grabbing it with your fingers after they started proofing or like fermenting even more. Oh, and I also wanted to try, like, do bagels actually need a hole in the center? I read that the hole in the center was to like promote faster and more even cooking, which I get, but I just wanted to give it a shot, see if we don't need that hole. But anyways, we're gonna go for another proof here, another rest, nice warm place with a towel, and we're gonna let this rest for an hour. So after you let it rest for an hour, this is just another method to test if they're ready to bake, if they're ready to boil, is the float test. If the bagels float, I guess it means they've fermented. The yeast inside has been eating the sugar and been off-gassing, so the dough is trapping air, making it buoyant. And look at that, we passed. That's not a bad looking bagel. So here we are. This is kind of the cool part because we get to boil these bagels before we bake them. And so here we go. We're going to add some baking soda, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of sugar. And I'm not sure if this is sort of to make a little bit of crust on the bagel, to flavor the bagel, to make the outside a little bit more elastic, because we're making the more alkaline. Or, yeah, I'm not quite sure, but just go ahead and throw the bagels in. Like, start your pot at a rolling boil. Once you throw the bagels in, it's gonna make the temperature come down a bit. But the temperature will come back. Like, I don't think you want to have it boiling like crazy, but just adjust the temperature as you go. And you're just gonna want to do this for all 8 bagels at 1 minute per side. And they actually start proofing even more. The yeast starts heating up, and they're starting to look a lot like you sat in the bathtub for too long. And you're wrinkly. Like, they kind of look like crullers right now. And that's what I was talking about. Like, maybe with the mixer and the dough hook attachment, you'd have a little bit of a smoother dough. So maybe you wouldn't have them so wrinkly. But I don't even mind. I love these bagels. I love how they look. And I found some Everything Bagel seasoning in the cupboard. So we're going to do 50-50, half and half with this Everything Bagel seasoning. And so I'm happy with how they're turning out so far. And I didn't have any parchment paper, but I did have this old silicone baking mat. And so we're going to use that today. I did not feel like running out and buying parchment paper. So looking pretty good. So now this is a 450 degree oven. I saw a recipe this is 450 for 14 to 18 minutes, and you flip them once for even cooking. But I saw another recipe out there for 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes. So, I mean, I think these turned out really well. I pulled them out a little bit early, I think about 4 or 5 minutes early because they were getting too dark. So, I think next time I'd do 400 degrees Fahrenheit for like 20 minutes, 20 or 25 minutes till they're golden brown. Yeah, and this is the next morning. It was advised in the recipe to let them cool overnight and to let them rest. But I think it looks pretty badass. Like, if that was in like a local bakery, I'd buy that bagel. I'd 100% buy that bagel. Look at them side by side. Their weights felt the same. And the bagel that I'm holding, the homemade one, that's the one where it was rolled into a tube and then pinched together. And it just, so I don't know, I'm sure they have a machine or something. Like, this is a Costco bagel. Costco bagel. I mean, they're deadly. Costco bagels are fire. We know they're good. And you can get like 2 packs of 5 bagels for $7.50. So it's kind of hard to beat. But look at the inside, the little air pockets and the density, the dough density. Like, there's no undercooked dough. Look pretty good, man. The jalapeno bagels are jalapenos inside. That's what you're seeing. It's not mold or anything like that. So we got to do the toast test. We got to do the toast test with the cream cheese test. We're looking for mouthfeel. Want to see if it's how it feels. Is it chewy? Is it too dense? Is it too light? You know, comparable. I want to compare it to a bagel that I know I like. So let's see. Homemade. Now I already know. It was good. I mean, if anything, I would say it was a little bit more chewy. It was a little bit more chewy than the Costco bagel, but which was good. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Like I almost, like it was like a negligible difference in chewiness, and I almost preferred the homemade bagel. Now, is it worth it with how much time the recipe takes to make the bagels? I think it was a fun recipe. It was a solid recipe. It turned out. Would I do it again? I'd do it again.
I got beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, raw, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, rat. You name